Hey, it's Kevin Lawton with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I have two guests with me. I'll be joined by Paul Driegen, who's the co-CEO and founder at PhD Solutions, and Dwain Browne, who's the product manager at PhD Solutions as well. And we're going to dive into PhD Solutions. We're going to hear a little bit about Paul's story as the founder and how they've kind of come into the industry, what they've been focused on, and how they're attacking dimensioning in the warehousing in the warehousing industry now as well. So, Paul and Dwayne, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you.
Doing
It's good to
great.
be
Thanks,
here.
Kevin. Yeah,
All right, good to get you both on here. Interested to talk about this dimensioning and dive a little bit further into this topic. But before we do that, we always like to hear how kind of companies came to be and solutions came to be. So, Paul, since you're the founder of PhD Solutions, why don't you kind of kick us off here? Tell us a little bit about what PhD Solutions is and a little bit about the story, too, of how you came to found the company.
sure. Thanks, Kevin. So I have roots in software development. Did that for about 15 years in various companies, various places around the world, always building custom software for small, medium enterprise, various types, mobile, backend, web, native, etc. In 2013, founded PhD Solutions. Again, it was just me at the time. And my goal was really to establish myself as a premier software technology company for the transportation and logistics space, because prior to founding PhD Solutions had a lot of involvement with various courier organizations, transportation companies, etc. So that sort of became a niche. um, Around 2015, 2016 or so, we were turned on to the idea about creating a dimensioning system using at the time, a new kind of camera technology, which would have been a little bit disruptive to the industry, which already had automated dimensioning technology. But we thought, hey, maybe we can do this. We can do it. We can build something that's less expensive, simpler, and really, shake up the industry a little bit. Again, that was some time ago, but fast forward to today, almost 10 years later, we've finally managed to establish a product suite. And our goal at this point is to create a suite of superior dimensioning solutions that prioritize ease of use and integration, in addition to the functionality itself. So we're able now to bring our software chops, because that's really kind of where we live, into and marry it with this hardware technology. So
Interesting.
yeah, and since that time, of course, I mentioned I started out in 2013 just as myself. Now we're a company of 15 full-time employees and contractors. A few years into it, a good friend and colleague, Jonathan Malda, had known him for many, many years. He came on as partner, so he's the other half of the co-CEO
Okay.
equation. And yeah, together we're moving this forward.
Awesome. Very nice. And, I think that, software is for the transportation and logistics industry, warehousing industry. Software is sometimes not thought about because it's somewhat involved, I guess, in a sense, you say, right? But it is such a powerful tool to be to enable a lot of the things that we do. And so I'm curious. I mean, how has having that software background and now getting a little bit into the hardware side of the business with this dimensioning solution? I mean, how does that kind of I guess build off of each other, and how does that software understanding and background lead into creating a better hardware at the end of the day?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, and you're absolutely right about software not always being thought of in any industry, really, because at the end of the day, it's an expense. And
Yeah.
there really needs to be a value proposition to invest in whatever technology uh, is required in order to move the business forward. But nevertheless, in today's world, it's essential to have a smooth
Mm.
technology platform to run your business off of. But so originally, the dimensioning idea, we were really attracted to it because, well, frankly, we're technology geeks, we're software people, we're technology people. We look at it as an engineering challenge. You go, you know what, that's really, really interesting. We want to see if we can do that. So, really quickly, we built a prototype in reasonably short order and thought, you know what, this might actually work. And well, there is a long story behind this, but at the end of the day, we managed to get our technology, our dimensioning technology embedded in some self-service kiosks for a company, Pure Later Courier, up here in Canada. And that's kind of how it was born. And we thought, you know what, we can take this technology and productize it. So we ended up finding some hardware partners who could manufacture hardware according to our specifications. And that's how this product line was born. But from the outset, we are a software company doing hardware, which is a little bit of a different approach, I think, from other players in the space who come at it from, they're a hardware company. Yeah, they build great software that lives on their hardware for sure, but their niche is in the hardware side. And anything to do with taking this product and integrating it into a workflow as tightly as possible is something they tend not to get very involved in. They say, here's our product. Here, we can set you up with some partners who can help you embed this thing, integrate this thing into your operation. Whereas we come at it from, no, we understand how difficult it is to bring in any new technology into an existing workflow. It's gonna disrupt training. It's gonna disrupt IT. Everybody's got to get involved to do all of these things to put this technology into the operation. So what if we could make that as easy as possible? And then also have the capability, even if there's something special about this particular installation where it's not going to be perfect out of the box, we're able to provide those services to just white glove the whole thing and say, at the end of the day, this is going to work very smoothly.
It is such an interesting point too, as well, where a lot of companies are almost I guess hardware first, right, in a sense where they've thought about, especially as we look at the warehousing industry. I mean, I think the things that stands out, and I mentioned software kind of invisible, but the things that are visible is the robotics or the automation and the actual equipment, but obviously everything behind that is being driven by software sense. So Dwain, I mean, you're a manager, right? So I'm sure you think about this, leading with the software versus hardware. So I'm curious your
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. So from my perspective, I just like Paul. So I'm a software developer by trade. I put that in air quotes because I'm officially trained software developer, but
he does it well.
Software development background, and the truth is that this was a really hard journey for us to kind of sort of make that transition, because being in the software world, you're accustomed to deploying the software, you got a bug or whatever, you could just sort of like quickly redeploy something else. But when it comes to hardware, it's not that simple, right? So just the iteration of just trying to figure out the process and just figuring out the manufacturing and all the things that comes with it was just a really hard challenge for us to sort of take on. But like Paul said, we fast forward, a few years later, we've kind of conquered a lot of those challenges, and where we really shine now that we've sort of addressed those hardware challenges is that our competitors are still in the hardware space, not necessarily thinking about the software side of things. And that's where we feel like we have an advantage, because when we come to the table, we're coming with both hardware and the software sort of level of expertise, and that integration allows us to kind of move forward and just give our our customers a more advantage in terms of implementation and that sort of deal.
Like what Dwain said is right on point. This idea of hardware is significantly different than software. And I think there were a number of challenges. And I think if we had known, frankly, going in like way back in the day to embark down this path and understood exactly what we were in for, right, we would have thought long and hard. But now that, as Dwain said, we've really, a lot of those things are behind us now, and we're like, okay, we finally have this in place. Let's move forward. But yeah, it was definitely a challenge for sure.
Very interesting. Yeah. Yeah. An interesting perspective there too. I mean, I think that's something that's, certainly, I think as like operations people, we don't necessarily think about, everything that's going into these types of solutions, and, does it matter, right? Is it, hardware first or software first, whatever the case may be, and, what does that look like? But I think, it's an interesting discussion there, and I think it's certainly something that, as you think about looking at solutions, right? You're thinking about what's actually powering like this hardware behind it. I think is important too to understand, because hardware, I think in my opinion, like hardware is one thing, but it's not necessarily, it's only as good as really the software that's kind of telling it what to do, in a sense, right? I mean, it's just like, I guess if you think about the human brain, right? Like my hands and stuff can only do what my brain is telling it to do, in a sense, right?
That's right.
So it's very interesting there. So now let's dive into this dimensioning, right?
Mm.
Because I guess first let's clarify here, because we have, if we look at an operation, warehousing, there's two different types of dimensioning, I would say, right? We have dimensioning that is like master data dimensioning, talking about product dimensions of the product itself, and that's like known data to us, right? Master data.
Mm.
But what we're focused on here is we're talking about outbound package dimensioning, right? So if we look at bound package dimensioning, meaning those packagings that are going out the door, and what are the dimensions of that when that order is all put together and packaged up, ready to go to the shipper or to the carrier. Um, let's talk about kind of what is that current state of dimensioning in the warehousing industry? Where are we at right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll take this one. So it's a fair question. So just to add one clarification there. So there's both outbound and inbound. If you're shipping products, then definitely it's obviously outbound. And the challenge that we're trying to solve there is ensuring that let's keep it the conversation simple. So let's just say that you're shipping a box with UPS as an example, or FedEx, or any of your favorite carrier, and that charge was $100 to ship the box because you measured it and they put that information in their system and they charge you $100. It would really you would not like it if 30 days later, after you got charged $100, they came back to you and said, hey, actually we measured it on that box on our side and it's now going to be $150 or whatever it is, right? So that's a chargeback, and that's basically sort of the core problem that we're trying to help shippers solve, right? Now, obviously, if you're doing one box, it's perfectly fine. But if you're doing 1,000 boxes or 30,000 boxes, now that $50 really adds up. You're talking tens of thousands of dollars, right? So that's one half of the equation. On the other half of it, you have the carriers. So think UPS, FedEx, etc. Some of the smaller carriers that are intaking those packages, and they now need to ensure that on the intake side, that whatever the customer measured, whatever is in the system, is accurate. And so what they're trying to do is ensure that that measurement is accurate. And if it's not, they essentially do the chargeback. So it's kind of a two-sided problem that this dimensioning system solves for us. And so that's how we're kind of approaching it. Maybe Paul could kind of add some more color to that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. To Dwayne's point, that's exactly right. The whole chargeback on the warehousing side, the chargeback is the primary use case for outbound package shipping that we're helping to solve. So what are people doing today? Well, it depends on the size of their operation, right? If they're quite small, they're shipping 50 or so units a day. Maybe they're manually measuring, or maybe, as we've seen quite often, they have a set of predetermined box sizes. So they feel they don't need to dimension because, hey, I'm only shipping 3 different sizes of boxes. They're always the same size. And they're always weighing, of course, because the charge to ship a parcel is a function of weight and dimensions, called the dim weight, so to speak. And weighing is seen as kind of a no-brainer. Everybody's weighing things. But dimensioning is sometimes seen as less important. And for outbound shipping, again, it depends on the scale, the type of things you're shipping. It may be that, just having predetermined box size is fine. But nevertheless, even with predetermined box sizes, an operator still needs to choose from a list which box they put, which box they chose to use. Maybe they made a mistake. A dimensioner can take those mistakes away by simply measuring and go, oh, that's box size B, what have you, to eliminate, data entry errors. On a large scale, think Amazon, Walmart, or massive fulfillment centers, they likely are using a different kind of solution. Maybe it's, they have in motion belts with curtains and very expensive cameras that are scanning barcodes and cubing everything as they're flying down these conveyors. That's a solution space we'd love to get into. We don't have something for that particular space right now, but that's on the higher end of things is what's happening already. Because at that scale, chargebacks could be just massive amounts of dollars. So it makes good financial sense to put a more sophisticated solution in place there. But I think there's another use case for warehousing, which is on the master data side. So in the warehouse management system, there is a product master, which contains information about the product, all the attributes of that product, color, size, what have you. And in addition to weight and dimensions. And of course, those two things are very important. Dimensions are important for two reasons. One, to decide where you're going to store this product in the warehouse. And then for two, if your shipping system uses containerization, say, and you're doing direct to consumer fulfillment and the consumer orders 5 different things, well, maybe you have a containerization algorithm that says, oh, we know the dimensions of these 5 things. You need to put it in this size box. If those dimensions are wrong, then your containerization algorithm is wrong, and you're going to end up using potentially, the wrong size box. Maybe it's too big. You're overcharging for that shipment. So we've heard from many of our customers and whatnot that the manufacturers supply these attributes, these weights and dimensions, but oftentimes they're incorrect. Or maybe they were correct on the first shipment, but then on the subsequent shipment, something changed about that product, and those data points changed, but they no longer have the right ones. And again, at scale, this can cause significant inefficiency. So those are 2 areas where our solution can fit.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Just to add one more thing to that. So, as Paul mentioned, on the higher end side, there's lots of these more automated systems sort of in motion. And I just want to make it clear that what we're focused on is the static part of the dimensioning. So in other words, manually, a human being physically taking a box, putting it onto our dimensioner, scanning that in less than 400 milliseconds, and then taking it off the belt and putting it onto something else. So that's kind of the difference. And essentially what we're really doing is try to fill a gap in the market, right? There's lots of players on the high end that could solve the problem. So we're not necessarily, we're not reinventing the wheel. We just see that if you're doing high volume package, you're doing in motion, there's already solutions on there. But to Paul's point, if you're on the lower end, you're doing 50, 100, 200 packages per day or something of the sort. There's just nothing that's filling that sort of market gap, and that's where our solution comes in, because it kind of fits that world where we can help you to bring the efficiency to the business, but also allow you to innovate and get some of the benefits of that, but not necessarily at the cost and at the higher solution, and get an ROI on your investment in a much faster time.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, I think it's such a challenge, and I've lived it in my career where we had dimension issues, and most notably was when I worked for a book publisher, and we would do calendars once a year. We had a calendar season, and sure enough, those desktop calendars, we would look up, and on the conveyor, you'd have a box like this big, and the desktop calendar would be like just sitting on top of it, because the picker is just following instructions, right, based on what it was saying, and we would always have an issue around that. So I mean, dimensions play a huge part, because there's a ton of work that needs to be done and doubled up, right, to fix the box, and then resolve that issue. But even now, as we get even more into automation and then things of that nature, those dimensions of product become even more important, right? Because something like an ASRS system, looking to understand like what can actually fit in the tote, and if I'm not clearing the height of the tote, well, I'm going to create a jam. It's not going to be accepted into the system. And rejected and go to hospital lane or something like that. So, there's a lot of things where maybe it's not top of mind, right, or thought about, but dimensions kind of like really rule the warehouse in a sense to be able to make that happen. And then obviously on the outbound side, as you mentioned there, Dwayne, getting those chargebacks is certainly something we don't want to deal with, right?
Right.
Because we don't want to pay extra unexpected money, and especially when you look at high volume operations, that adds up very very quickly. So, I guess tell us a little bit about what does kind of a before and after look like when we start to bring in these dimensioning solutions. What are people doing now if they don't have some type of hardware or software that's handling this, and then as they implement what you guys are offering, what does their operation look like after that?
So the before and after. Yeah, I would have to take a hypothetical scenario here, I think, um, because every operation looks a little bit different and it depends what they're doing. But
Mm.
I'll just sort of piece together some scenario based on conversations that we've had and customers that we've helped. So um, a company ships apparel, they ship clothing, and they that comes inbound, and the clothing comes, shirts come in a box, and there's 25, 30 shirts, however there are in a box. And, okay, they take that, they store it. Then customers start buying this product and they buy a bunch of different shirts. And they have a very sophisticated system that containerizes the order and says, oh, you bought 5 shirts. Okay, it should go in this size box. And the operations manager notices that boxes going out the door are absolutely massive and it costs ridiculous amounts of money to ship. And they're offering free shipping to their customers. So they're just, they're getting crushed here. What's the problem? Well, challenge is that the folks doing the intake are saying in the product master that the dimensions of this shirt are as large as the container that came in with the 20 shirts in it. So their containerization algorithm is then going, oh yeah, okay, well that's a pretty big volume. We got to put a lot of shirts or a very large box to contain all these things. So that may be the one instance of a before picture, and obviously a dimensioner can help significantly with that if someone is simply cubing these bags of apparel as they come in and updating the product master. Now the containerization algorithm has correct data to make better decisions and obviously at the end of the day save the company significant amounts of money on shipping. Again, on the other side, on the chargeback side, a company is doing direct to consumer fulfillment and they have to ship the products in the container that the original manufacturer sent them in. They're not allowed to recontainerize things, for example. Again, relying on dimensions provided by the manufacturer, no problem. They got it. They use that to do a rate calculation. Oh, it's going to cost $30 to ship. It goes out, and 30 days later, they get a bill for 35, 40, 50 bucks, some variance. The money's gone. They can't recoup it anymore because it's already shipped. It's done. They've collected the money from the customer, what have you. So it's simply lost revenue. Again, a double check at the fulfillment side before it goes out the door, before that rate is calculated, do a recalculation of those dimensions very quickly. And you're going to get accurate rates and cut those chargebacks down to hopefully zero in an ideal scenario. Now, companies are aware of this and they have various processes in place to try to mitigate it. Maybe somebody's sitting there with a tape measure just making sure that everything's correct, and then they're keying in those dimensions right into their shipping system before they do the rate shopping. Did they key them in right? Probably, but they're distracted, stuff's going on, maybe they fat fingered something and end up with incorrect values. So the after looks like predictable results as opposed to relying on other parties and hope that everything is correct.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And did you mention earlier too about, how like maybe your shipper who's ever doing the packing is, manually selecting the box size and maybe they make a mistake there or something like that. I mean, when you implement like a dimensioning system like this, does that take away that manual step? Like, is that able to just be automatically integrated into like the WMS or whatever system they're using to confirm?
Right. And that is a great question. And it segues a little bit into, the real value proposition I think that we offer. If you think about a product like this, and if you just distill it down to its core, it very quickly calculates the dimensions of something, obviously. But we sort of said, okay, so what? The dimensions appear on the device has a small screen, and the dimensions appear on there. And if we stop there, and if there's a scale, you'll also get the weight. Okay, great. So now you can read the dimensions and the weight. Again, great. What am I going to do with that information? Which is, the ultimate goal of this is that information now needs to be made useful somehow. So in order for it to be made useful, it needs to flow into something else that can consume it and use it to make operational decisions. And that again is where we feel our value proposition really kicks in. Is we have worked very hard to make that process as easy as possible. And we thought of as many scenarios as we could. How can we make it so easy for some companies, some WMS provider, some shipping system provider to automate the process of pulling these dimensions out of the device and into the platform where they ultimately need to go. So
Yeah.
we sort of look at the device at the end of the day like a tool, like a barcode scanner, perhaps, where, yeah, there's a number of different barcode scanners on the market. At the end of the day, they all scan barcodes. They all scan them very well. Some of them have little features here and there that make them superior in certain cases. But at the end of the day, they all kind of do the same thing. The fact that they scan barcodes isn't important. It's what are you going to do with that barcode after you scanned it?
And not to ding our competitors here for a bit, but just to kind of highlight some of the advantages that we have. But you know, essentially, as Paul said, a lot of the stuff is just kind of sitting on the screen, and essentially the user still has to potentially even manually enter that back into a system. In some cases, they might provide you some sort of SDK or something that you'd have to then sort of integrate with your solution. With our solution, it natively takes that data and could potentially put it out to the cloud, which is one of the solutions that we have. Optionally, if that information, you don't necessarily want it out in the cloud, it could stay on your local sort of whatever file system or whatever it is that you're using internally and route it to wherever you need, right? And that's where the real strength of PhD comes in, is because we're a software focused company. We understand the software space, we understand the integration, we understand the challenges, to improve operational efficiency. And so marrying these hardware and the software world really allows us to kind of like meet you where you are as a warehouse operations manager, trying to figure out how to improve efficiency, and then sort of drive that conversation forward with a proper implementation, right? So yeah, and the reality is that if you're doing volume, the chances are of somebody that's manually doing a measurement, like they're going to make errors. That's just the reality of it. Like they will make errors. And some of the customers that we're talking to, they're seeing between 5 to 20% error rate, right? Now imagine if you're doing 30,000 packages in a day across multiple warehouses. That's a lot of money. That's essentially you're just leaving on the table, right? For no reason. And so being able to take that and sort of push that data into your existing WMS, TMS solution and have it seamlessly integrate, removing the human out of the picture, just calls for more efficient, streamlined operations. And you can guarantee with some level of accuracy and reliability that the data that's inputted into the system for the rate shoppers, etc., is just much more clean and valuable, right? With less errors.
Yeah, Yeah, absolutely. And I think it kind of ties back to our conversation there in the beginning, right? Of the advantage of, being software first in a sense, right? To create those kind of workflows and integrations to help, try and eliminate some of those errors, right? And,
Right.
you're talking about people doing, hundreds, if not maybe thousands of packages shipping out a day, right? There's bound to be some type of error, the more repetitive manual entry you're going to do, right? So anytime you
Right.
can help to alleviate that and help to give them more accurate information and then automatically input that for the user, I think is a great experience for sure. So it's really good to hear that on that side. So as we look to, we talked about kind of the current state of dimensioning in the warehouse and the different sides of the table from inbound, outbound perspective and software versus hardware. But as we look towards the future, tell us a little bit about, what should be top of mind when it comes to dimensioning for those ops folks and people out there that are dealing with this on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really interesting, and actually I was listening to one of your previous episodes with I think it's called cargo something. I'm forgetting the name now, but cargo
Okay.
shot or something like that. But
All right.
they essentially are snapping pictures of the cart sort of pallets so they could do audit trail, etc. One of the things that we haven't mentioned so far is that when we do a dimensioning of any product, we're also capturing a picture of that
Mm.
product.
Okay.
That image actually goes up into the cloud and sits in a portal that is called the Envision Cloud System, and you can then go in after the fact and review those images to be able to see, you know, potentially you ship something out and there's a dispute of some sort, right? You could go back, you have an audit trail that of that particular package that you could then use that to sort of address any disputes or clarification. So there's huge advantage from that perspective. And again, this is where moving into the software, we're really just taking a hardware solution, giving you the tools that you need, but then we're bringing your data into the cloud that you can now integrate with any other third-party solutions, or also, you could do, AI is the new buzzword now, so you can
Yeah.
run analysis on it to find anomaly detections in your packages, or do, there's lots of stuff that you can do, and that's where we see the future is. Like a lot of these warehouses, as we know, are very old school. A lot of them are still using Excel and spreadsheet and stuff like that. And frankly, if you wanted to push the data to Excel, we can. We wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but we can. We're a software company. We can do any single thing. But the reality is that most of these companies are now, because they're moving to the cloud, it allows us to provide sort of a foundation, a platform, right? If you're going to do any single thing with AI, you need data and you need accurate data, and you need reliable data. And so that's basically sort of like that core platform that we're setting up to kind of set you up for success in the future.
All right. Interesting. Paul,
Yeah,
anything you want to add there?
I think Dwayne hit on it with the future vision around AI. So the transportation, logistics, shipping space is only growing, and it's going to continue to grow significantly. And there, we're always looking for efficiencies, and AI is a natural progression into helping solve even, you know, well, let's just say very difficult to manually determine problems. In the next few years, you're really going to see this take off. People are going to start coming out with solutions to do more efficient routing, to do more efficient containerization, to do, what have you, things I haven't even thought of yet. But
Mm.
in order to do that, in order to even if there is models out there that can solve for these things, in order for them to solve for your operation, you need to have data and mountains of it. In dimensions and weight is a huge part of that. Whenever it comes again to shipping optimization, to warehouse storage optimization, to routing, to containerization, to any of these things. That's not the only ingredient, but it is something that needs to be standardized. So our vision for the future is to enable our clients to have to collect that data, to make sure it's consistent, accurate, make sure it's easy to capture so it doesn't get in people's way, and that it's easy to access.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, data at the heart of everything is kind of the core in a sense, right? It's kind of dictating, what we should do, what we shouldn't do, what's actually happening, right? In a sense. And, I think that becomes more and more important to, not only how do we generate that data, but how do we put it and utilize it in a way that we can actually make some improvements or take some action on. So I think that's great to recognize that, and great that you guys are focused on how do we better capture that and manipulate that for your customers and operations overall. So very interesting talking to you both today, and really appreciate you coming on the show. If people are interested in learning more about what you do or getting in contact with PhD Solutions, what's the best way to do that?
Well, first of all, we'd love for you to just go on our LinkedIn and just type in PhD and just add us on LinkedIn. That's probably where we do most of our broadcasting, etc. But you could obviously go on our website, PhD, as in the smart people, phdsolutions.ca. And yeah, and from there, you'll be able to look at our dimensioners and, reach out to us, book a call if you got any questions, or just want to have some thought process around, what can I do in my operations to improve efficiency, right? Like I said, because we're a hardware and a software company, just being able to have a sort of a sounding board where we could help you sort of troubleshoot and figure out some of the potential implementations that you might need for your business is where we excel. And so we'd love to talk to you if you're up for it.
All right, fantastic. And we'll definitely put all the information about PhD Solutions at thenewwarehouse.com as well, so people can easily find it. So Paul and Dwain, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. It was a pleasure. Lots of fun. Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning into today's video here on our YouTube channel, The New Warehouse Podcast, and I appreciate you tuning in. If you liked what you saw, make sure you subscribe to our channel, and if you like this video in particular, make sure you like it as well. And if you want to get this great t-shirt that you see in the video behind me, Warehouses Are Sexy, head to warehousesAreSexy.com and get your own.